Okay, when you think of India, maybe ancient history comes to mind, or perhaps its vibrant culture. And yeah, you'd be right on both counts. But are you really tuned into the dramatic shift it's making on the global stage right now? Today, we're doing a deep dive into India, not just the country, but India as this force that's actually reshaping global power dynamics in the 21st century. And for this exploration, we're really digging into the insights from the book, India in the Eyes of the World, Power, Culture, and the New Global Narrative. Our mission here, it's basically to explore how the world really sees India today, and just as importantly, how India is influencing the world back, politically, culturally, economically, even philosophically. So, yeah, get ready. We're going to uncover some truths, maybe some controversies and the big aspirations driving modern India, and how this idea of Bharat is emerging as a genuinely new global story.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating here, I think, is how India is positioning itself. The book calls it a third power, which is interesting, right? It's not about just copying the old U.S. model of dominance or even China's super fast, sometimes kind of pushy rise. India seems to be carving out its own path. Moving, you could say, slowly, steadily, but with this real quiet confidence. For ages, the view was often just developing nation, burdened by colonial history, lots of internal stuff going on. But the change this book describes, it's profound. India isn't just asking for a seat at the big tables anymore. It's actively claiming its space. It's not just in the dialogues, it's influencing them, sometimes reshaping them entirely. As we get into it, we'll see how its geostrategic spot, its evolving foreign policy, that incredible soft power it has, and wow, its digital revolution, how all these pieces are feeding into its rise. And it's offering something kind of rare, actually, in today's chaotic world.
Okay, so given that context, India is steadily claiming its space. What does the book say this really started to show up powerfully? What were people maybe missing at first?
Well, the book points out that back at the start of the 21st century, while everyone was watching the U.S. and China, India sort of began this confident climb almost under the radar. It pretty quickly became more than just a regional player. Its location geographically became genuinely vital from a geostrategic view, not just bridging Central, South, and Southeast Asia, but also, and the book really stresses this dominating key Indian Ocean trade routes, maritime security too.
Yeah.
That makes it indispensable for global stability, really, which is why you see its influence growing in the Indian Ocean, why it has these strategic ties with the U.S., Russia, France, Japan. It positions India as this crucial global balancer.
A global balancer.
Yeah.
That's a powerful idea.
Yeah.
But it's not just about where it sits on the map, is it? I mean, historically, India's foreign policy, like under Nehru, was all about non-alignment. How did that change into this proactive thing you mentioned?
Exactly. Yeah, it's way more than geography. Historically, you're right, non-alignment was key. It gave India autonomy during the Cold War. Smart move then. But fast forward to the 21st century, especially, under Prime Minister Modi's leadership, that whole stance has really transformed quite significantly. It's gone from being mostly reactive to, well, boldly proactive.
Like how?
Think about things like Q-A-Day, the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue. That group with the U.S., Japan, Australia, that signals a much more assertive role in the Indo-Pacific.
Right.
Or look at India leading the G20 and even bringing these ancient philosophies like Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which means the world is one family, right into its diplomacy. The book argues this isn't just like repeating global talking points. It's actively trying to rewrite the narrative, infuse it with India's own civilizational values.
Okay, this next bit I found really interesting. The book talks about India's democracy as this compelling alternative, especially compared to authoritarian powers like China. China's actions often create suspicion, but India is generally seen as more patient, stabilizing. But does the book get into the tricky stuff, like internal issues, economic inequality, political debates, the things that might, complicate that positive global image, even for a democracy?
That's a really important question. And yes, absolutely, the book tackles that nuance. It definitely champions India's democratic resilience, this idea of it being a genuine alternative. But it doesn't gloss over the internal challenges. Not at all. It talks about navigating huge economic disparities, the sheer pressure of running the world's biggest democracy with all its diversity. But it also suggests that despite these complexities, the very fact that India upholds democratic processes on that scale, that actually strengthens its global appeal. Even with major border tensions like we saw in Doklam and Galwan, India's approach, strategic restraint, combined with firm diplomacy that's earned respect. Why? Because it operates within that democratic framework. The goal seems to be stability, not dominance.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so beyond strategy, policy, democracy, the book says India brings something else, something fundamentally different to the power equation. What's that key differentiator, the thing that lets it influence beyond just tanks and treaties?
Oh, yes. It's the soft power, the sheer profound impact of India's soft power, which has just exploded globally.
Right.
We're talking about things deeply embedded in the culture, like yoga, Ayurveda, the unbelievable reach of Bollywood
Can't
movies.
escape Bollywood.
You really can't. And, Indian food everywhere, its spiritual traditions, these things have forged this kind of emotional, cultural connection with the world that, honestly, few other nations have. Think about the UN's International Yoga Day. That's a perfect symbol of this outreach. It's not just an Indian thing anymore, is it? It's global. Millions embrace it. It shows how cultural appeal can just cut across borders and politics.
I was really struck by the vaccine matri example in the book, especially during COVID. It felt so different from how the other big players were acting. What did the book say was behind that? What was the impact?
It really was a powerful moment, wasn't it? You had many powerful countries basically hoarding vaccines, focusing inward, and then India launches vaccine matri, which, literally means vaccine friendship.
Yeah.
And under this, India sent vaccines to dozens of countries, especially in the global south. The book presents it as more than just humanitarian aid. It frames it as a real demonstration of moral leadership on a global stage. It showed this willingness to share, to support, instead of just pure national self-interest. And that really resonated around the world.
Absolutely. And this leadership, it's not just traditional diplomacy or culture. The book spends a good amount of time on India's digital revolution, too, as another kind of model the world is watching.
Oh, definitely. That's huge. Initiatives like Aadhaar, the world's biggest biometric ID system, and UPI, the payments interface, it allows instant money transfers, bank to bank. It's genuinely transformative.
Right.
The whole Digital India program, it hasn't just shaken up government and finance inside India. It's massively boosted financial inclusion. Millions who were unbanked now have access. They can participate in the digital economy. And now, countries all over are looking at India's tech model, how scalable it is, how inclusive, with real admiration. Many are actively trying to figure out how to replicate parts of it. They see it as a kind of blueprint for fast, fair digital transformation.
Okay, so let's try and pull this all together. What does it all mean for, global relations going forward? The core idea seems pretty clear. India's rise isn't about dominance in the old sense. It feels more like profound influence. It's less imperial, more inspirational maybe, inviting participation. So to recap, we've seen how India showed that moral leadership, like with vaccine matri during COVID, when others were, frankly, hoarding. It's offered this strong democratic alternative to authoritarian models like China's, navigating its own complexities but sticking to restraint and diplomacy, even with border flare-ups. And then there's that incredible soft power. Yoga, Ayurveda, Bollywood, food, creating this deep cultural connection, perfectly shown by the global embrace of International Yoga Day. And finally, that digital revolution piece, Aadhaar, UPI, Digital India, becoming this admired, scalable model for other nations, changing governance and finance.
Yeah, and if you connect all those dots, look at the bigger picture. India isn't just presenting a new power dynamic, it's offering a different kind of balance, one that's rooted in values, democracy, humanity. The book really drives this home. It's not the story of a superpower rising purely through force or aggression. It's framed more as a civilization rising with purpose.
A civilization rising with purpose.
It's exactly. Which leads to a really interesting question, I think, for you listening. In this world that feels so divided, shifting so fast, what are the real implications? What happens when a major nation puts ancient ideas like Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the world is one family, right at the center of its global leadership? Think about how India's approach, this model of influence rather than pure dominance, how that might actually shape the future of international relations. Could it inspire different kinds of global cooperation? Something to ponder.